SaaS as a business, the overall win rate that companies have is relatively low. And when they try to bring that type of win rate into a more complex enterprise environment where there aren't as many prospects, you can't be as wasteful.
And also too, I think people forget how old predictable revenue is.
20 years.
It's more. 20 years. Where like getting an email was like, ooh, that's fun. Particular to SaaS is it's so product focused.
They don't necessarily. And then let's teach them how to be a seller.
What are some of the learnings you've had over the past 4 to 5 years speaking to people in this space of like what seems to be working, or maybe the opposite, what isn't working that people are still out there doing?
Well, yeah, a lot of it's not working, right? So there's been a change over this period as you've seen the conversation shift from the enthusiasm for sort of I'll label it the predictable revenue model, to people thinking, okay, well, it's not quite as black and white as we thought. We all sort of rushed into it. And now for certain situations and certain environments, maybe that's not the model for us, right? And so you're seeing, and I hear more and more frequently is sales leaders say, yeah, we're sort of modifying that, or we're migrating away, or maybe we're doing a more complex enterprise sale, and maybe we team an SDR with a senior seller, but maybe it's not even an SDR, maybe it's really only a senior SDR. So there's changes afoot, and it's not going to be as, I think, applied as in blanket fashion it's sort of been in the past.
What do you think has driven that change?
Results, or the lack of, right? I mean, I think that SaaS as a business, the overall win rate that companies have is relatively low. And when they try to bring that type of win rate into a more complex enterprise environment where there aren't as many prospects, you can't be as wasteful. And so you have to make sure that you win a higher fraction of your deals. So that says, look, how do we have to reevaluate everything about what we're doing, starting with how do we initially engage with people and prospects, all the way up to how we work with the deals and close it.
And I think that's where, if you think about, and also too, I think people forget how old predictable revenue is.
20 years.
It's more. 20 years where like getting an email was like, ooh, that's fun. Oh, you want to know who to talk to? Sure, Andy. Here's who you want to talk to, right? And they're trying to apply it to this new space where, everyone's doing it. So if you take that next step, how do you stand out, right? When you are trying to prospect, when you are trying to kind of break into some of these accounts, what are some of the ways that you're hearing and seeing to stand out, right? Where you can kind of garner that attention to get the conversation started?
That's the $64,000 question, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the place where most companies are struggling, right? How do you stand out in the noise? How do you command the time and attention of the people that you're trying to outreach to? And it's a tough one, right? Mm-hmm. I think that where we're seeing companies say is, look, we have to experiment more widely with what we're doing. It may be a combination of things. May not. Well, we know about omni-channel. We got to be more present in more places. But at the end of the day, it does boil down to how do you as a human interact with another human being when you have that opportunity. And, everything that goes into, sort of the randomness of being able to intersect with somebody so that you can get them on a phone or having them respond to a message or so on. But for me, what I focus on is really when you have that opportunity, what do you do with it? And we're still too pitch oriented, right? This is how we set up our SDRs. Let's pitch. And there's been, some studies that show that actually, if you get hold of a senior person and you start the conversation on the right foot, and you pose a question to have them think about a potential outcome, they'll engage. And we're not doing SDRs a favor by saying, look, this is the way you have to do it. And I think too many sales leaders, sales bosses are sort of caught up in this sort of framework because it's become this playbook that everybody does. Everybody does this playbook. It starts at the top. We're not enabling our sales managers to be able to help their sellers do better jobs of these things.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's a shame because if you think about where, especially on the SDR side and in SaaS, I think part of this is very particular to SaaS, is it's so product focused. And it's like, all right, people get to know their product, but they don't get to know the prospect. They don't know how to have a conversation with that senior leader. They have no idea.
Yeah. It comes to an idea that I've been talking about more recently, which is something I borrow from soccer, and people listen to the show know I'm soccer obsessed. And I remember seeing this interview with a coach in the Premier League who was talking about, when we bring young people into the team, we spend a few months training them how to be a person before we train them how to be a player. And to me, this is something we're missing in sales, right? We know this is a human business. We know that the ability to connect with another human being, the ability to unleash your curiosity, to keep probing, to be able to help the buyer. Some of these things are just human skills. And we make the assumption that people coming into the workforce in sales know how to do this. They know how to be human. And they don't necessarily. And so let's spend the time to invest in them, to help them with sort of these, just, I said, basic human-oriented skills. And then let's teach them how to be a seller.